Hi, welcome to Breaking It Down with Noel Dodge. This is episode number 2. And ironically, my first episode, I talked about Charles Manson in my Bon Jovi t shirt. And the correlation between what I'm trying to do is bridge that gap between fatherless children in our society because we have a vulnerable population of children that are not getting services desperately needed based on a misunderstanding. So, children who experience parental rejection, and this goes for women too. I mean, there are many men out there, I don't want to discredit the men that are raising children by themselves. Um, you know, eh, and, you know, as a society, we all go, oh my gosh, a dad raising kids, and everyone flocks around. Um, Thinking that's giving them support because good for you. We're so desperate to see a man be a father, and yet we don't do that for women. I don't know why women don't do that for women. It's not nice. Because children are children, and it's great. I'm not saying we should stop doing that for the men. We really should encourage and support our men that are single fathers. So my whole thing is bridging that gap, and one way is to get society in these trauma-informed programs, starting with our first responders. If we have police officers working with fatherless children in their areas, whether it's in the city of Chicago or out in some little boon town, you're making a connection. And the importance of this connection, whether it's a female police officer or a male officer, a girl or a boy, regardless, they're a little less likely to engage in some high-risk behaviors if they know officer so-and-so might see them and maybe they shouldn't do that, right? Because that's really what a dad does. Gives us a reason to think twice. Makes us think about not disappointing him. And when a child doesn't have that, no matter how much the mother cries or begs and pleads or screams and yells or becomes traumatized herself with her children, especially preteens and teenagers, and society is not stepping in, but actually treating their children like criminals or promiscuous little girls and creating judgments on these vulnerable population, it really sets our children up for some really ugly future behaviors. And Charles Manson, the one thing he was honest about was how society feeds into it and creates people like him. And no one wanted to listen to that. No one wanted to listen to the black man that's marching down the street talking about peace. But people are listening to a white man sitting in a jail cell about disrespecting and dishonoring and disarming our police officers and perpetrating a black versus white kind of a culture, an underlying race war. So how did that happen? How did that happen as a society that we listened to a white man sitting in a jail cell about that, but we didn't listen to him about how society creates men like himself, and we didn't listen to Dr. Martin Luther King, who marched in the streets talking about peace and nonviolence? How did this happen as a society? So the first thing we have to do is recognize, A, that's an issue. that There's a point that actually, okay, let's raise awareness. Now, what can we do? And the thing is, I'm working on these programs to try and bridge those gaps. And I do have the opportunity to share my solutions with people in the corporate sector, in the government section, and also in mainstream. So that is my whole purpose. And this is episode 2. This is the seeds that are being planted. Is this all going to bloom overnight? No, it's not going to bloom overnight. But months, years, whatever down the line, I'm going to look back and I'm going to see this. It started here. It started now. It started now. And that video where I talk about Charles Manson, I don't even know how that came up. But his birthday was on 11/12. And I believe it was 11/13 where I had this inspired thought to add him into my thesis about trauma in children. And next thing he's in the hospital, and now it's the 20th, and he passed away. And in 3 days, it's Thanksgiving. Like, it's just too weird too weird on too many levels. So I believe that here is a man that literally sacrificed his whole life to teach us the what not to do with children who are fatherless or in crisis or in trauma, and we completely ignored everything that he said. Yet this law of attraction, we wrote on the fear-based thinking, we watered those seeds. We didn't pay attention to what he was saying, as far as when he said, and I'm paraphrasing, when you turn your back on someone, that is me. That is how you create someone like me, because you turn your back on somebody. You judge them, you this or you that, like you turn them into a thug because you treat them like a thug, because they don't have a father at home that's going to come down to the police station and ask, why are you harassing my son? They're vulnerable. They're vulnerable. And it's really important that we really honor and respect our police force, and it's really important that our police force give us something to honor and respect, and they are doing that in many ways. I'm not discrediting our police. They do not get enough credit. The ones that are getting highlighted and shown are the ones that are not becoming of officers, and that is the image that keeps getting thrown all over the news, and that keeps discrediting our officers. Not helpful. Not helpful, especially when there's so many good officers out there that end up getting killed in the line of duty because of the disrespect that society has for them. So there are two major problems here, and I see a solution that bridges these two major problems. If we get our police officers and first responders working with children in fatherless children programs that are trauma informed, I really think we can bridge a gap here that can make some serious change in our communities. So